Motorola once used to be the king of the budget section with the Moto G series, the G1, the G2, the G3, G4 Plus, all these phones. But somewhere along the lines, they lost track of what was happening, possibly because we saw phones like G6 and G7 which weren't really very well priced, and it felt like they weren't really listening to what people were saying. Now, I think Motorola has again started to go back to its roots, because this is the Moto G8 Plus, and I think it's a very valuable device. But is it worth all your money? Well, let's see that in this video. So hey, this is Sri Hari from Mr. Phone, and in this video we're going to give you a full review of the Motorola G8 Plus. Now, before jumping into the video, do not forget to subscribe to the Mr. Phone channel and also hit the bell icon right next to it so that you get notified when we put out these awesome new videos. Now, the design at first glance looked to me like what most recent Moto phones look like, but when you take a closer look at it, that's when you realize how deep that gradient goes, and it's beautiful. During the unboxing, as I said, I wasn't really excited, but I have to say it's grown on me and I quite like this look. Now, the back is not glass, and there are a lot of other phones in this price range that do come with a glass back. That said, I think that's a good or a bad thing depending on who you ask. The front is covered with Panda Glass, which is sort of a brother or sister of Gorilla Glass and is another company that makes scratch-resistant glass. The device sits very well in the hand and gives me comfortable fit. Yes, being glossy makes it a bit slippery, but you do get a case inside the box, which is a good thing. The power button is textured like always, and you get good clicky volume buttons too. The device charges via USB Type-C cable, and there's a single speaker at the bottom. What you would be surprised to know is that the Moto G8 Plus comes with a dual speaker setup, with the earpiece doubling as the secondary speaker. There are barely any devices under 20k that do that. That is also precisely why the speaker sound quality is so good on this. The headphone jack performance is not as impressive, but is good enough for daily use. Moving on to the display, the Full HD Plus panel on the G8 Plus does check the resolution box, but the colors are not too exciting. That said, a lot of people are admittedly into more natural looking colors. The display is buttery smooth to touch, and I've almost never had accidental touches. The display is also nice and rounded, and I really like the build of it too. The brightness of the phone isn't exactly the best, but that's only in direct sunlight. There is wideband L1 support, which means that your online streaming games should be sorted. The panel, being LCD, isn't prone to color shifts, and color accuracy is pretty damn good too. The display isn't anything mind-blowing, but it won't create any problems for you, and it'll get the job done with finesse. Now, we all know Motorola phones, and one of the most favorite parts about using a Motorola phone for me is the stock Android experience. Now, there is a disconnect here. A lot of people on the internet, a lot of people who watch tech videos usually demand that all phones have stock Android. That said, there are a lot of other general consumers that I've talked to, even friends of mine, who have returned phones back after they bought it in a week because they don't like how stock Android looks. Now, the disconnect here is that geeks want performance over design or looks. That is why we love stock Android, because it's well optimized, it's light on the processor, it's a very snappy and buttery experience. That said, for general consumers, while performance is important to them, they also want a very good looking UI, something that they like to use every day. Now, that is where the disconnect happens. We like the performance, general consumers like how it looks. So a possible way to appeal to the masses would be for stock Android to maybe look slightly more engaging, maybe, if that's the word. But for other OEMs and Android skins, what they can do is maybe they can make the software look the same as it is, but work on the optimization and make it as light as possible. This is where we can find a common ground, I think. And of course, with Motorola, we get stock Android. I love that a lot. It's very smooth, it's a vanilla experience. The stock Android is also not heavy on the processor. You get Moto Display, Moto Actions, that chop for flashlight, as you just saw. All those things are right here. And with software, again, like all other sections, you do not get a flashy design, but you get a very basic minimal experience that will give you the best performance possible. The phone not only supports Project Treble, but also supports seamless system updates that very few non-Google phone support. The Snapdragon 665 sits inside the Motorola G8 Plus with 4GB RAM and 64GB storage. That's the only variant available. Now, while it's not the most powerful chipset in this price range, it's much better than what Moto did last year. Also, the 665 on stock Android is quite good. This machine is built for a daily user and for content creators too who want that versatility with the camera setup on this. For a daily user, I think the 665 with 4GB of RAM and stock Android make a great combination, and the only gripe I might have, a little gripe, is that Motorola doesn't have a higher RAM version for people who want to use that. Now, while Motorola cameras haven't necessarily been bad, they also haven't been mind-blowing. But this year, I think there's some valuable experience that you get with this one. Now, you get a camera which is bumped up the standard camera to a 48 megapixel sensor this time, and you have a depth sensor as well. But the most interesting camera on this one that I like the most, it's my personal favorite, is that action camera that has been borrowed from the Moto One Action. The front camera also gets a bump up to 25 megapixels. Now, coming to the actual camera quality, the G8 Plus is very good. I really like the appealing color tones in most pictures. The sharpness and details are pretty good too. The dynamic range could be better, especially when you put the Mi A3 side by side, you will see the difference. This HDR shot, for example, truly shows you the difference between the two. That said, the only thing that Moto is missing mostly, apart from the dynamic range, is the contrast ratio in these images, and if it does that well, that can easily be fixed with software. I think it'll get very close to what the Mi A3 provides. Coming to this portrait shot, for example, just look at how appealing the Moto G8 Plus looks. Sure, it's a little bit saturated, but I think the colors do look pretty nice. Now, coming to selfies, the G8 Plus doesn't do a phenomenal job, but I think it does a good enough job with colors. The dynamic range is an issue here too, and let's hope Motorola works on it to make it better over time. But truly, it's not as impressive as the 25 megapixel number might suggest. Now, where the Moto G8 Plus has an unfair advantage over others is that sweet action camera borrowed from the Moto One Action. That camera just changes a lot of things. The action camera video not only looks better than the Mi A3's, it's more stabilized, it has better colors, but you can also shoot that video holding the device vertically, which makes stabilizing even easier. It's truly that action camera experience. Now, with that action camera on the Moto One Action especially, I was actually taking a lot more videos than I would take with the normal phone, and that was happening with the Moto G8 Plus too. That said, the Mi A3 does let you shoot wide-angle pictures, which the Moto doesn't for some reason. All in all, the camera experience provides you some truly valuable use cases, and if you like to have that, then the Moto G8 Plus is an amazing camera smartphone to have. Moving on to the battery size, the Moto G8 Plus comes with a sizable 4000 mAh battery and a 15-watt Moto Turbo charger. The battery is quite long lasting, and I always ended my day with 10 to 15% left to spare. It's not a 2-day battery life, but on casual usage, it should last a full day with ease. The 15-watt charger takes about 2 hours 10 minutes on average to go from 0 to 100, which is not the fastest out there, but it's not bad either. All in all, I think the battery performance on the Moto G8 Plus is very reliable, and in all these years, even if there were unimpressive phones, the battery performance is something that Motorola has always kept the highest focus on, and I'm happy to tell you that it is still here. Now finally, we come to an end of this video, and what I have to say here is that the Moto G8 Plus looks like a complete package. You have a great processor, that stock Android experience with 2 years of software updates promised from Motorola. You have great cameras at the back, a unique action camera too, which is very well stabilized. You have a 25 megapixel selfie camera, a great display, good battery life, USB Type-C, a truly amazing stereo speaker setup, which makes it one of the very few devices under 20,000 to have that. I think the Moto G8 Plus provides things that a lot of other phones do not provide. That said, there are other phones out there that do provide things that this one doesn't. For example, the Redmi Note 8 Pro is in a very similar price range, and you get the Helio G90T, which is significantly more powerful than the processor here. You have the Realme XT with a different look with a 64 megapixel camera, but the real competitor to the Moto G8 Plus when it comes to that philosophy is, I think, the Mi A3, because it also runs stock Android, it also gives you great battery life, and it also has a set of great camera. Between the Moto G8 Plus and the Xiaomi Mi A3, when it comes to design, it's subjective. The Mi A3 is the one that I prefer because of the smaller size and also a glass body. The G8 Plus is slightly bigger and it also doesn't have glass on the back. So design wise, I think the Mi A3 wins for me. Display wise, I like the Mi A3, but I think most people are going to prefer the Moto G8 Plus because this has a Full HD Plus display and that one only has a 720p Plus display. I prefer the Mi A3 because it's an AMOLED display. Now we come to the processor and we have the exact same processor. Coming to software, we also have the exact same software. The multimedia performance is better on this almost objectively because this has a stereo speaker setup that the Mi A3 doesn't have. You also get great battery life out of both phones. Now with cameras, this one provides you a unique experience with that action camera, but the Mi A3 has slightly better cameras when looking at the overall landscape. Now it's up to you to choose what your preferences are. If you want an overall better camera with all the cameras doing that job and a smaller phone than the Mi A3, if you want a bigger display, a Full HD Plus display, so a high resolution display and that unique action camera apart from the great standard 48 megapixel camera that you have, then the G8 Plus is also a very good option. And with that, we come to an end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. This is Sri Hari from Mr. Phone with the Moto G8 Plus and I'll catch you in the next one.